So I got asked a question the other day. About how people end up stuck in the matrix. And everyone said, oh, the school system. But it's actually more complicated than that. So the reason you lose is because you've been programmed to lose by all of your experiences throughout life. Winners are programmed, losers are programmed. I was programmed to be a winner in any scenario because I was raised in a very specific way. You were not. So we're going to start at the absolute beginning of why you've ended up a loser, because school is the easy answer, but I'm going to give a detailed breakdown with a diagram explaining exactly how most of you ended up being dipshits. Right, so how you end up trapped in the matrix. We're going to break it all down for you because our last diagram of Darcel did well, so I think this diagram will do well as well. So you're born, and the first people who teach you anything about life are your parents. And you're born to one of three categories of parents. Now, the reason we're doing this diagram is because, guys, I want you to follow along and work out where you are. Most of you never self-reflect. You're dummies who never look in the mirror and say, how did I end up where I am? Why am I the person I am? Why do I believe the things I believe? I've been programmed by X, Y, and Z. Why do they want me to believe these things? Why did I listen to them in the first place? Why do I reject certain propaganda but believe other propagandas? You don't self-analyze. So you don't understand how your own mind works, which means you don't understand why you are where you are, which is why you're a fuck-up. Because before you make a move on the chessboard, you need to analyze your position. So you are going to be one of the people we described today. So you have to work out exactly what they are. And then you can deduce the strengths and weaknesses from said position, which will help you progress further in your battle against eternal slavery.
And obviously this is all perfectly planned out. The diagram's already drawn in both of our minds. We see it in front of us. We sat there for hours and pre-planned this. We're not just going to make this up with pens as we talk, because that would be amateur.
Exactly. We're not just going to start drawing things. But you're born to parents, probably. I don't know. The next generation might be born in one of those homosexual fucking gay egg camps. But you are probably born to a man and a woman. You're born to parents. And your parents are one of three categories. They are either poor, they're somewhere in the middle, or they're rich. You're born into one of these three categories. Now, there are specific strengths and weaknesses to each one. As said, you have not analyzed your position. So if you're born to poor parents, the disadvantages are, one, you probably don't know, and your parents probably don't know anybody with money.
It's called lack of opportunities.
So I would call it lack of experience, lack of understanding there's a world outside of eternal poverty. Because when I was poor, I was born in the poor parents section. I didn't know anyone who was rich. And I didn't know rich people existed the way that I now know they exist. I knew some people had money, but I didn't know that there were people who could just do whatever the fuck they wanted all the time and money was never a consideration. It didn't cross my mind. I was raised before the internet. There was no Instagram. I didn't see any kids that way. I grew up in rural Chicago, just outside. I didn't know there was people who were truly that wealthy. So
yeah, rich was like both your parents were working. Rich to us was low middle. They had a PlayStation, they had food, and they lived in a nice house. But that's not rich.
So you know zero rich people. Which means you have zero access to, one, inside knowledge, and two, networking. You have no considerable networking. What you do have is hunger. Unless you're a loser, you want to get out. And you have that get rich or die trying attitude. So you do have hunger, that's a positive. So we need to put negatives and positives. So you have positives, which are hunger and desperation to escape, but you don't really know any rich people. Your parents don't know any rich people. You have no network. And also, another negative is, your parents have no knowledge on money. They don't know how to get rich. They have no clue.
So no teacher.
No teacher. They know a rich person. Now let's look if you're born in the middle. If you're born in the middle, your parents probably do know someone who is rich. So they know a rich person. They have access to some rich people. And they have access to some network. Not everyone they know is rich, but they know the odd rich person. So they have an access to some rich people, some network. But you have no hunger at all. You are a dipshit. Being born in the middle is probably the worst scenario for making money. And most of you were born there. You know, when I was young and I went to the fridge, there was nothing in it. Do you understand? I was hungry. There were days, weeks, periods where I was hungry, and my mom always found food. There was a dinner each day. But in between that, I was just hungry. If you're born in the middle and you're hungry, you get a snack. We used to get snacks.
Go to those rich kids' houses. We used to think they were rich when they were born in the middle, and they'd be like cans of Coke and Capri Suns in the fridge. Chocolate bars in the fridge.
They were hungry, they just grab a bag of crisps. Then you were born in the middle. If you did that, you were born in the middle. You have no hunger, you have no desire, you've never been truly broke. Worst place to be born is the only thing worse than having no teacher is having a bad teacher.
Yeah.
Because your parents have a view on the matrix and a view on how to make money, which is outdated and no longer correct. So they teach you the wrong things. Go to school, go to college,
get a degree,
get a mortgage, pay off the house. All the crap that worked for them is all bullshit from the middle, and it doesn't work. But because they managed to put cans of Coke in the fridge, your dumbass believes them. Or you're born to rich parents, where everyone you know is rich. Everyone is good network. And interestingly, if you're born into a proud dynasty, you do have hunger. If you don't, you don't. But some of them, you have hunger too.
Yeah, you aspire to be like your parents.
Yeah, so you have hunger too. And you have a good teacher. Isn't that amazing? That if you're born rich, it's very, very easy. Now, there's going to be a lot of similarities between the rich and the poor as we go through this diagram. So you guys understand that with most things, it's the people in the middle who get fucked. Let me give you an example. The people at the bottom didn't get the vaccine because they thought fuck the vaccine. The ultra wealthy didn't get the vaccine because they thought fuck the vaccine.
We don't need the vaccine.
The matrix slaves in the middle who believe in the educational system, who believe in the mortgages, who believe the news, did it. They got the vaccine. Poor people don't believe the news. Why don't they believe the news? Well, poor people don't believe the news because they have already had an experience where them or someone close to them or a family member has been through the judicial system, been screwed over by their lawyer. They know that judges aren't real. They know that it's fuck the police aren't fair. They already have a natural distrust for the system. So when the news says something, they don't believe it. The rich people don't believe the news because they're the ones telling the news what to say. They're the ones lying to the news so they can spread the lies. The people in the middle believe the news. The dummies. So if you're born in the middle, you know a few rich people, but your life is fine. You have no hunger at all. You have a bad teacher teaching you bad things, and you believe the Matrix propaganda.
Let's take another example. Debt. So we're talking financing a car to pay for it, getting out student loans to go to university. This level, I was too broke to consider university as a viable option. If you think, well, I was poor, but I went to university, you're in the middle. You were in the middle and you don't realize you're actually poor. When you're actually poor, you have to go work in a fast food restaurant straight out of school so your mother could continue to pay the rent. So, do you get into loads of debt? You don't get into loads of debt when you're broke because your credit rating is terrible. You can't borrow money. You can't borrow money for anything, and you have no access to finance or credit. So you're living hand to mouth. So no, you don't get into debt. If you are super rich, you do not get into debt. Why? Because if your father wants you to go to Cambridge University, he's going to pay your university fees. If you want to get a car when you're a teenager, your father will give you a few tasks and say if you complete them, I'll give you a car to drive around in. So debt doesn't cripple you from an early age if you're broke because you can't get into debt, or if you're rich because you won't get into debt. But in the middle, you better believe you're going to get your ass into debt.
For your education.
Or for you got a job and your car, your transport, you're going to get yourself into debt.
The system is made to fuck over as many people as possible. And there's always going to be more people in the middle than there is at either ends of the extremes.
Because these people and their mates make the rules of the system. These people aren't worth exploiting by these people. So the dildo of exploitation always points in the middle. It's a very straight, hard dildo. Right down the middle.
So you have to work out which one were you born into, and the majority of you were born in the middle. And you have to understand that you innately are lazy. You innately lack hunger and fire. You're innately afraid. You're a coward. The people at the bottom don't fear the law because they have nothing to lose. And the people at the top don't fear the law because they know they can beat it. You in the middle, Mr. Fear the Law, you lack the balls it takes in many scenarios to get rich or die trying. That's the truth. So you lack motivation, and you've been taught all of the wrong things, and you're most likely to get in debt. By the time you work all of this shit out, it's too late. You're already in debt. You're in your mid-20s. You're starting to try and unlearn all the garbage you have learned. And now you're trying to develop motivation from somewhere because you don't understand why people at the bottom seem to have endless amounts and people at the top who are loyal to their last name seem to have endless amounts, but you in the middle don't have any of it at all. So what would you do if you're in each of these scenarios? Of course, by analyzing the board, the smartest thing you can do is to try and take your strengths and play them off against your weaknesses. So if you're poor and you have a lot of hunger and motivation, your primary objective should be, 1, to learn about how money really works, because you don't have a teacher, and 2, to get around rich people and network. You have hunger and motivation. What you have to do is fix the things you don't have. You need to get around rich people. You need to get a good network of people you can trust who have a lot of money. You need to find a teacher who's prepared to teach you how money really works. If you're a rich person, everything is perhaps going well for you. You already have rich people, you already have a network, you already have hunger, you have a good teacher. Your primary objective as a rich person is to exploit people below you to benefit yourself. And you do that from your status, from people wanting to be near you. That's primarily how you do it. In the middle, what would you do? Well, you know some rich people. First thing you have to do is you have to analyze how rich are they really. And also, you have to prove yourself to them in a way where they're prepared to talk to you and help you.
Because they still look down on you as though you're a poor person.
That's the first thing. The second thing, and your biggest problem to fix, is your monumental laziness.
It's like the poor people are wild animals, right? The super rich people are the people who run the farms and the industries, right? The middle people are the domesticated cow. Cows don't try to escape. Cows don't try to leave the field. You got food, nice warm barn, you're fucking, you're reproducing. Life's good, you see. I was in a fight for survival. You're fine, and that's why you get fucked in the end by the people who put the system together.
Absolutely right. The system is designed to fuck the people in the middle as much as possible. So, considering that the system is designed to fuck the people in the middle, considering that most people watching this are probably people who are in the middle, we're going to talk to the people in the middle, which is what we always do. And the number one thing the people in the middle need to do is, 1, unlearn all the bad things they've already been taught, and 2, to develop a fire inside of them. That's why we're so monumentally successful, because we develop a fire inside of men. People in the ghetto already have the fire. Those brothers already have fire. Yeah. They're already prepared to do anything it takes.
And you could look, some of them are stupid and some of them are not. But a stupid person in the middle isn't going to run into a convenience store with a pistol to steal $114. But someone down here will. That, like it or not, is a motivational fire that no one else seems to have. But also people who are poor can make these monumental stories. These monumental success stories. Oh, I was completely flat broke, and now I'm rich as fuck, like Andrew and I, like most rappers, like most sports stars. It's never, oh, I was completely broke, and life was shit, and now I'm doing just okay.
So, if you're born in the poor bracket, you can only really go up, or experience the life you already know. If you're born in the rich bracket, you're probably going to be okay. Even if you end up a drug addict like fucking Hunter Biden, you'll end up okay in the end somehow.
Hunter Biden's alright.
It's unfair, but it's true. If you're born in the middle, unless you make changes, you will only downgrade. Unless you make conscious effort to ensure that you end up rich, you will end up poor. Because the entire world is shifting and the game is changing. With inflation, with the expectation from a female of what you're supposed to have to be considered wealthy nowadays. Also, with the conglomerates and the large pooling of wealth, it's becoming harder and harder to know rich people. This is something no one really talks about. When it was all mom and pop stores and individual small business owners, if you were in the middle, you knew people who owned businesses. You could learn from business people because you knew people who owned businesses. This guy had that store, that person's a farmer, this guy's a plumber, whatever. That's changing and everything is becoming monopolized. As that happens, one of the problems with that is because you're going to know less and less people who have the ability to truly make money for themselves. You're only going to know slaves who work for the Matrix itself. You don't know Jeff Bezos. How many people has Amazon put out of business? How many small businesses has he closed down? And you're never going to know him. So as the money gets pooled, you're going to have less and less access to people who know how to make money, which is going to make it even more difficult. So if you're in the middle, you're already on a treadmill, and that treadmill is already pushing you towards towards poor, whether it's the conglomeration of assets and wealth, whether it's inflation, whether it's the expectations of females of what's considered wealthy nowadays. There's a whole bunch of reasons. If it's not the fact that there's a whole bunch of people out here who are now getting access to the English-speaking world and are prepared to work harder than ever before. Oh, you want to be a coder? Well, there's an Indian who will code and he'll work harder. Now there's AI and that will outperform you. Your laziness is becoming more costly than it's ever previously been. You are on a treadmill working backwards. If you're poor and you have hunger, you're actually in a better position than these people in the middle because you've never known anything else. All you've known is a degree of comfortable, but that degree of comfortable is going to get closer and closer to slavery. You're the one who's going to get fucked. You're the one who's going to get fucked, which is why it's extremely important you change, one, getting rid of all the bullshit knowledge that's previously been in your head. And a lot of people are already. A lot of you are already woken up. But two, you need to ignite the fire inside of you. You need to make sure there's something inside of you that's going to get you motivated like a poor person's hunger because you've never felt it before. It's extremely important, or you'll be the one who ends up flipping the burgers. So, it is our job, as the good teachers we are, to try and motivate the people at home. Because the poor don't need motivation. The poor understand what it's like to be taken advantage of. And the poor understand what happens when you have no money and no food. You don't. And that's why you've actually had a very bad start in life. You need to now, and this is the actionable, guys, you need to cultivate a lifestyle which is going to endlessly give you fire inside of your heart so that you never struggle with motivation ever again. You need to cultivate that with your social circle, which is why we have the war room. If you don't want to join the war room, find it somewhere else. You need to be around motivated, hungry men. You need to cultivate it with the decisions you make. If smoking weed kills your fire, don't smoke weed. If drinking booze kills your fire, don't drink booze. Everything you need to do. If drinking booze gives you fire, then fucking drink it. I don't care. But you need to sit down and look at your life and say, what's going to make me as motivated as possible? Is it developing an imagination to imagine my dream life? I'm sure it is. Is it having a social circle of people who are always trying to elevate? I'm sure it is. Is it having a girlfriend who supports me in all of my dreams? I'm sure it is. You need to then sit there, look at every facet of your life, analyze it one by one, and develop a lifestyle which is going to give you endless fire, because without it, you are going to lose.